The Russian defense minister requested to provide more weapons to soldiers on the battlefield. Russian troops massively attacked Ukraine's defense system in Donbass, which gradually collapsed. The Russian border city is haunted by the specter of war in Ukraine. The Russian defense minister requested to provide more weapons to soldiers on the battlefield. On May 1, the Russian Ministry of Defense said that Minister Shoigu had ordered more and faster weapons to serve Moscow's special military campaign in Ukraine. According to Reuters, the Russian Ministry of Defense said that Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces Valery Gerasimov, who is currently the commander in charge of Russia's military campaign in Ukraine, just had a meeting with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. To maintain the necessary speed of the attack, it is necessary to increase the quantity and quality of weapons and military equipment provided to Russian soldiers, Minister Shoigu requested. Amid delays in Western countries providing military aid to Ukraine, Russian forces have made important advances in recent weeks along the front lines in southeastern Ukraine. Russia has taken control of many villages in the Donetsk region, while consolidating battlefield positions in the Kharkov region. Last weekend, Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, General Alexander Syrsky, warned that Ukraine was at risk of losing more territory if the West did not quickly provide weapons to Kyiv. Russian troops massively attacked Ukraine's defense system in Donbass, which gradually collapsed. The pace of Russia's advance marks cracks in Ukraine's entire defense system in Donbass, and the weakening of the Ukrainian army. While the Russian army is occupying one Ukrainian stronghold after another on the front lines, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, is putting together money to maintain the existence of the Kyiv regime. In just the past few days, rapid Russian offensives have helped take control of 3 strategically important villages north of Avdiivka. The failure to deploy additional reinforcements, including units equipped with US-made Abrams tanks, caused Kyiv's defenses west of Avdiivka to collapse. All the main strongholds there have fallen. If the Ukrainian military command does not allow the withdrawal of the remaining troops from the northern suburbs of Berdikai, this battlefield will most likely turn into another mass grave. Russian flags were seen flying over one new settlement after another. In addition, the Russian army also won another battle south of Donetsk. Russian forces gained a foothold at the refractories factory in Krasnogorovka. This large facility used to be the main stronghold of the Ukrainian army in the region. To strengthen it, large resources were sent. The Russian flag planted over the factory could become a turning point in the battle for the town, located in the hills, and capable of controlling fire over a large surrounding area. The speed of Russia's advance in different directions marks cracks in the entire Ukrainian defense system in Donbass and the weakening of the Ukrainian army. Military analysts note that no amount of military support from the West can help the Ukrainian army regain the initiative and will only prolong the suffering. Suffering heavy losses, Kyiv is facing a serious shortage of manpower. While Russian forces are hunting Leopard and Abrams tanks on the streets, Kyiv is taking the unpopular step of looking for some legal way to expand mobilization. The Russian border city is haunted by the specter of war in Ukraine. The streets of Belgorod are deserted, shops are closed, people are afraid to leave their homes, as this border city lives in fear before Ukraine's attacks. Belgorod, the capital city of the province of the same name, located about 40 kilometers from the Russia-Ukraine border, now resembles a ghost town. Buildings were damaged, roads were riddled with bullet holes after missile and artillery attacks from across the border. Arrows indicating the nearest shelters and supply depots are painted on the facades of buildings. The city's eerie silence is occasionally interrupted by raid warning sirens, a reminder that the conflict in neighboring Russia has come very close to Russia. When Russia began its campaign to attack Ukraine in early 2022, the city of Belgorod was the place to launch many missile and rocket attacks on Ukraine, and was also an important logistics center for Russian units. After a year of suffering attacks, Ukraine changed tactics and increased raids on Russian territory, putting the city of Belgorod in its sights. In recent weeks, Belgorod has been the target of artillery shelling and drone strikes, UAVs, almost daily. Russian officials accused Ukraine of being behind the attacks. Russia claimed to have intercepted most of the attacks, but admitted that Belgorod suffered a lot of destruction and casualties. Vyacheslav Gladkov, governor of Belgorod province, said on March 23 that 24 people were killed and 152 injured in Belgorod in less than 2 weeks of long-range attacks. At the height of the shelling in Belgorod, 36-year-old organist Timur Kaliulin walked through the deserted streets of the city center, filming a video titled Belgorod Under Sirens to show others the situation. He also filmed arrows pointing to shelters or places containing emergency first aid kits. When Kaliulin reached the central square, sirens sounded. "Did you hear that? That's a scary siren. That's an airstrike signal. This means fire is coming right now, and I have to hide," he said. Screens arranged around the square instruct people on what to do in case of shelling, how to provide first aid and repeat patriotic encouragement. The fight against Russia continues. "Victory will be ours," one message stated. When the siren stopped, Kaliulin continued filming the empty streets, images of people waiting at the bus stop. People traveling by public transport often wait for hours at stops until they receive a clear signal that the bus continues to operate. City life resumed until the next attack alert. The hometown of 25-year-old volunteer Natalia Izotova was not the same before the conflict. "It's a small, peaceful place where people simply live their lives and try to change for the better when they can," she said. Born and raised in Belgorod, Izotova said that although she was terribly scared every time the air raid siren sounded, she still did not want to leave and did not want to give up her job at a local charity. "The Belgorod you remember no longer exists," she said. "Now the city is always deserted, very few people dare to go out unless there is work to do. They still try to venture out onto the streets, but the situation has become more bleak," she said. In mid-March, amid increased raids in Ukraine, causing sirens to sound 4 to 5 times a day, Governor Gladkov announced the closure of shopping centers and schools for 2 days in some areas, including there is the city of Belgorod. Multiple videos shared of Belgorod showed chaotic scenes as people drove through thick smoke and cars caught fire, as well as damaged buildings and residents fleeing with luggage. Explosions and air raid sirens rang out everywhere. Late last December, after a major Russian airstrike on Ukraine, Kyiv retaliated by targeting Belgorod a day later. At least 25 people were killed, including 3 children, and 113 were injured that day, making it the deadliest raid in Russia since the conflict began in late February 2022. "This is the darkest day we have suffered recently," said Elizaveta, a 24-year-old witness in the raid on the night of December 30, 2023. At the end of her shift at a chain of beverage stores near the city center, she heard an explosion. At first, everyone thought it was the sound of a regular anti-aircraft missile. "And then I saw everything on fire, the buses stopped running and the taxis also stopped because the road was completely blocked," she recalled. Many people were killed and the entire city is in mourning to this day. Elizaveta added that life in the city has turned upside down since then. Her store became empty as many people were afraid to leave their homes.